Welcome to the December 16th, 2025 work session of the Mayor and City Council of Hagerstown. The meeting's now called to order. First up, we have the presentation of our 10-year plan, downtown plan. Mr. Doug Reeser.
Doug, you'll introduce?
Yes. Good evening. We're here to review the 10-year downtown plan. Joined here by Urban Partners, Chris and Isaac. I'll let them introduce as their sections come up. They are our consultant for our 10-year plan. They actually assisted us with our 2014 plan as well. We're asking with this presentation, it's more of an executive summary. We're looking to solicit feedback tonight as well as into next week. But we're going to be back in front of you again in January for incorporation of the final plan. So this is more an executive summary of the plan itself. It is a presentation. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Chris.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Lankenow with Urban Partners. Nice to see you again. I worked on the plan 10 years ago. A little grayer now.
We both looked younger, right?
Time flies, right? Yeah, we're thrilled to be back. We were very impressed with all the work you've accomplished over the 10 years since we were here. And yeah, we think it's a great opportunity to kind of revisit that and come up with a strategy for the next 10 years. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the presentation here. Whoops. Is that?
You can go ahead.
Oh, okay. We have just a quick agenda of what we're going to cover. We wanted to share with you our engagement process and some of the results of that, including a survey. Oh, there we go. And that really all kind of funneled into what we're calling key direction from the community, which is really a good foundation of what the public thought of some of these ideas. We conducted a market analysis as well to make sure that we're vetting some of the recommendations in reality. We'll cover some of those findings. The full report will have all the details if you want to look at those. And then we'll get into key downtown opportunities, both from site-specific angle to public improvements to programmatic improvements as well. And then, of course, we'll be happy to take your questions and discussion. I'm going to first hand it to Isaac to cover briefly our engagement process and some of the results from that.
Thanks, Chris. So today we'll go over kind of the overview of the process and the key takeaways. So just engaging the public in a variety of ways. So we just describe. We had 2 community meetings. So far, over 70 people have attended in person. We had community events in which we put up booths. So just walk up for engagement. Sessions, notably there was a baseball game in which the booth was there to collect feedback. We had a project website, over 1,000 people visited and interacted with it. And in it, it was an online survey in which 450 people filled out a response. And lastly, we had 10 roundtable meetings as well as one-on-one interviews with many stakeholders in and around the downtown. So just getting a feel for what these events were like. Community open house, June 26th, there were 50 attendees. We were there to just collect open comments at that point. We had a great session, a bunch of different maps and exercises and comments that folks were able to make. In the second community meeting, we held it here on October 1st, where we came back with some initial takeaways as well as market findings or market impressions, and kind of got some ideas of like what kind of physical improvements that we are looking at and interacted with the residents in a more of a charrette style here. That was a very good session that we benefited from. Online survey, as I said, 450 surveys, responses over 80%, around 80% were people from the local zip codes, and that was open for a couple of months. A lot of great comments were collected. So I'll go over some key takeaways from the online survey. First of all, we asked, what is your primary connection to the downtown? And the largest segment said they're visitors. So they're from elsewhere. They don't work or live in downtown, but they visit downtown. The second biggest, about 25%, were workers who actually work in downtown. And a smaller group live in downtown and own property, et cetera. So key questions that we asked were, what part of the downtown do you find the most fun and enjoyable? And, there's a mapping exercise here where you put a green dot here. There were, terrific, obviously the baseball stadium was a key anchor here. A lot of people enjoy that as an attraction. But venues such as Hub City Vinyl were noted, City Park, et cetera. So there were a lot of positives that people pointed out as well. On the converse, we also asked what are some things or items or areas that we should focus on as areas of that needing our attention. So some of the key comments, I'll go over them briefly here, but elsewhere later in the distilled version, is we need more businesses. We need more activities. We need more events. We need more boots on the ground. We need more shoppers, et cetera. More events, there's a lot going on, but, could we build from that and, build additional, synergy and activity? What are the three most things that we asked? What would you want to change or improve in the downtown? And some of the top answers were here include green spaces and parks, adding more greenery, more trees, something more, something that really improves the feel of downtown. Safety and security measures are quite often coming up in terms of not just crime per se, but even perceptions of crime or reputation. Those things were all part of that comment. A better experience as a pedestrian or even a cyclist. Easier access to and from downtown were mentioned. And more shops, more restaurants, more things to do, et cetera. So those are the key comments that we took away from the survey. We also asked what kind of new uses or developments would you like to see in the downtown? And the top answers were, again, restaurants and dining, retail and shopping, entertainment, and bars and nightlife. So people want this kind of an entertainment district in which you can come and enjoy and also provide for, some retail needs as well. And lastly, in this section, what types of new housing? We earlier on, we noted that housing is going to be a key component of a downtown plan because housing is desperately needed in every community in America right now. It's actually a housing crisis, as many have dubbed. So, if we were to add housing, what kind of housing would you be comfortable supporting? A lot of the most people, 54%, said mixed use with commercial. So commercial on the ground floor, obviously, and mixed use on top. Some of the existing fabric of your buildings are exactly that way. Ground floor retail, walkable, and then walk-ups on the upper floors. But some, new buildings could be in that configuration as well. The so-called missing middle, which is from smaller footprint housing, something that's in between single-family residential and higher density multifamily. That's called the so-called missing middle, and that was something that was pointed out here. Affordable housing was mentioned as well. 33% of the respondents said that, as well as townhomes, which is pretty prevalent in the downtown and the surrounding neighborhoods. This next question asked about mobility or, improvements to mobility. What would you like to see? And the top answers were streetscape improvements, improving or building upon success of the cultural trail, traffic calming. So a lot of vehicular traffic coming through, in and out, knifing through downtown. Could we do something to really control that so that it's a better downtown environment? And also sidewalks, improving that, making it a little more safer for pedestrians. So hearing all of that was really quick, but we, kind of aggregated all of those into key statements, what we call the declarative statements about what the public sees as downtown. What downtown Hagerstown is blank. And there are four, statements that we bucketed these statements from the public. And the first one is my downtown Hagerstown is vibrant, so sense of vibrancy. We noted that anchors like the Meredith Park, Maryland Theater, downtown events really bring people in and bring vibrancy. So could we continue to build on that, celebrate that, and make that something that downtown Hagerstown is known for? However, the downtown core also needs more businesses. So more restaurants, more shops, retailers, generate more foot traffic. And of course, if you generate more foot traffic, you'll have to the source of that would be visitors as well as residents. So, in both ways, that could be attract those sources. But downtown has a unique opportunity for new mixed-use development. Some of the vacancies that you might see now, could we see that as a potential opportunity to fill them with the shops and restaurants and attractions that people really want? The next bucket on the right side in the blue, the next statement is my downtown Hagerstown is connected. So what do we mean by that? What do we hear in that regard? One statement is improve downtown streets and alleys to enhance walkability. So walking, sense of safety, sense of aesthetic, beauty. I think people wanted that. People want that in the downtown streets. And also cultural trail is an undeniable strongest asset of downtown. So continue to build on that. And Chris will go into some of the ideas about building on that cultural trail. Downtown's connection to the neighborhoods. So there are neighborhoods kind of surrounding the downtown. Could we, make it a more pleasant connection between the neighborhoods to walk to and from and travel from these neighborhoods? And lastly, as I mentioned, the vehicular traffic going through downtown. It's not for cars. It's just a way to get through downtown really quickly. But as a pedestrian, as a shopper, as someone coming for events, it does provide some difficulties and challenges to maintaining a vibrant downtown environment. The third bucket is the third statement is the downtown Hagerstown should be and is celebrated. So what we heard is that downtown needs more community scale parks, green spaces, gathering areas with a special focus on the public square right here, there, kind of turned around, and the surrounding area. So it really could be the focal point of a continued revitalization of downtown Hagerstown. So it's kind of the hub within the hub within the hub kind of situation, and that could be right here in the center of downtown. And also, those of us that are from outside, especially our colleagues from Atlanta, they came up here and they were marveling at the architectural beauty of Hagerstown, because this is very unique in America these days, that a downtown has this kind of architectural footprint, the bones in which you can build upon. So that is a clear asset. So celebrate that, celebrate the history of buildings, what used to be there in the 1800s and 1900s, kind of play that up, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But and also the use of public art and placemaking, making a sense of enhancements on the street. I think that could actually play a big part in celebrating Hagerstown. And lastly, activating and programming different things. Again, a lot of things are going on, a lot of great things. The downtown group is great, doing great stuff, but can we continue to build on that, celebrate that, and make it public so that people can travel from all over the place to come visit. All right, the last set of key directions that we heard is that my downtown Hagerstown should be welcoming, or is welcoming. So what do we mean by that? We heard that the need for downtown to feel more safer. Again, we're speaking to the perception as well as the reality, and more welcoming. For locals, yes, but also for visitors. So, playing up the positives, the vibe, the buzz, all of that, you name it. I think that would be a key way to kind of market the downtown as a place to come and visit and enjoy yourself. Improve the overall image, I think it speaks to that same thing as well. So perception is a big thing for people that are potential shoppers and visitors around the surrounding county area. What is their perception? How could we get into their minds and hearts so that they can start perceiving downtown as something of an asset, not something to avoid? There's an opportunity to attract more tourists and visitors. Again, speaking of the history, as well as the natural beauty of the aesthetics here, as well as the anchor institutions. The theater, obviously, the baseball stadium, and other restaurants and unique things that are going on here. There's continued efforts for tourism and for attraction. And lastly, downtown needs more things to do. So adding not just established shops and institutions, but like more activities on top of each other. So I think that is what we heard in terms of this aspiration for downtown to be more welcoming. Okay, so we'll pivot here and we'll go to market analysis. So we heard from the public, but we also did a lot of work in kind of studying the real estate market in various components of it. So here, in the report, there will be a pretty detailed technical memorandum, if you are interested in reading through that, of the market for each of these 6 areas. But today, we'll just go over the key highlights of each market and potential opportunities that we saw. So first, the for sale market, for sale housing market. So there's a lot of townhomes, and resale townhomes are in the highest demand we see in terms of housing in the downtown area. Sale prices that we observed are below what we call the replacement cost. So it's if that building were to be torn down or rebuilt, the price that the cost of replacing that is much higher than the actual value of the housing currently. So what that means is that market rate construction of for sale housing remains to be a challenge currently without deep subsidy filling the gap. So the for sale market strategy that we see for downtown for now is to continue stabilizing and intervening in the existing housing stock to make sure it doesn't slip further. Some of the investor activity, I think there has to be some monitoring of that so it becomes responsible tenants, responsible landlords, not just people from California that are buying these up and renting them without really much maintenance. Those are the kind of things that we want to recommend that as part of the for sale housing strategy. Rental housing, however, we saw a pretty robust market. The Updegraff and the Aria are new market rate apartments that are currently on the market being leased up. They're not quite completely absorbed yet, but we think it'll happen soon. However, we see not the highest levels of rent that Updegraff and the Aria is trying to achieve, but then right below that, nice new newly renovated, nicely furnished apartments that are targeting perhaps young professionals or even empty nesters. But the market is still kind of dormant in that middle segment, upper middle segment. So if there are apartments that are nicely furnished, newly renovated or newly built, but are a tick below the highest market prices of the Updegraff and the Aria, we think that would be very attractive to many potential new downtown renters. Next, retail. We looked at retail, the whole, kind of how many different categories? We did a full retail market analysis and saw a few but notable opportunities. So retail is appropriate for the downtown Hagerstown area are mainly in two buckets. Food and dining, what people want, there's actually a lot of need for that. Full-service restaurants, bars, drinking places, snacks and beverages. We're talking coffee. There's a terrific coffee shop we know, but there could be more added to that. Ice cream shops, other desserts, etc. So I think those can work very well, as well as specialty food, not a grocery store per se, but something that's really targets a specific niche special food item. As well as some miscellaneous retailing, we think that could work as well. Pet store, art dealer, home furnishings, those kind of smaller footprints that would fit well within the confines of the buildings here. Next, hotel market. We think that there is a market for hotels, though right now the existing demand will be absorbed by the new True by Hilton we're staying at the sister hotel at the Home 2, so we're looking right at it. It's almost done, we think. So that'll suck up a lot of the demand that's currently in existence. But by early 2027, which is 12 months from now, which is crazy, we think there will be somewhere between 60 to 100 hotel rooms that could be absorbed in a new facility. And we think that downtown could be a place where the hotel demand could be absorbed. It's not going to look like a Home 2 or True, most likely, in the downtown. And Chris will look at potential examples of what kind of hotel facility could work here. Next, office. Office is kind of iffy. Office has been up and down, pretty much down since COVID pandemic, and many of us were doing Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, and so office market is suffering all over the country. It's anemic, and many offices are converting to residential. However, in downtown Hagerstown, in terms of the supply, we saw a lot of buildings with smaller professional services that could accommodate a lawyer or a realtor or an insurance agent or even a city planning consulting firm. So those could all work here in the current footprint. However, if there was a larger corporation or a regional office that wants to come into downtown because it's a great place, there's a lot of restaurants, their workers like living here or working here, they will walk to work, et cetera. There isn't a high, quality Class A space of scale to accommodate them. So that is something that we want to bookmark and say, perhaps by a certain time as these things are happening, that we should also keep in mind that some of these sites could be somewhere an office user of scale can locate here. So that's something to footnote. We don't think there's a market. We haven't come across any stakeholder that said we are trying to build. We're not saying that, but we think if there were a hypothetical user like that, the downtown could be an environment that adds to everything that we're talking about, visitors and foot traffic, customers for the restaurants. Lastly, in this section, the co-working space, there are 3 notable co-working spaces, high-quality ones, so we don't think there's a market to add any more of that at this time. So last, we will go to entertainment, and then I'll hand it back to Chris to continue with the catalytic sites. Entertainment, so typically entertainment, we're talking about movie theaters. Movie theaters, it's difficult these days with movie theater. Netflix is actually gobbling up everything, including Warner Brothers, maybe. But the movie business has kind of changed a little bit from multiplex and giant things with a huge parking lot around it to, in this kind of environment, something smaller. So we think perhaps a micro cinema, something that offers perhaps even dining and food or even drinks, could work in an environment like this. We're not necessarily saying there's a clear evidence for demand for that right now, but we think something like that could be part of the mix. Same thing for bowling alleys. Bowling alley, we're thinking more of an entertainment venue, not just a bowling, like Tuesday night bowling league type of a place, Bowl America, et cetera, the blast from the past. But these bowling alleys are entertainment areas with an arcade, with a bar, with, you can go there to watch a game. So these kind of venues have worked in downtown environments, and we think Hagerstown could be in line to absorb something like that in the future. So just to keep in mind. So that's it for market analysis, and we'll go to
Thank you, Isaac.
downtown sites.
Okay, so, based on that analysis and the feedback from the community and stakeholders, and working with the city very closely, we came up with a series of key downtown opportunities, and we see that in 3 kind of major areas, from catalyst sites, which is kind of the way we did it in the last 10-year plan. Also, more of the public realm, the streets and open space areas where we see some opportunities. And then kind of rounding that out are more programmatic types of things, not necessarily physical improvements, but programmatic improvements. So we'll go through each of these. For the catalyst sites, you're, I'm sure, familiar with all of them. We looked at sites in the 10-year plan 10 years ago, and several of those have been realized, and, some, however, have not, and they've made this list again because we think that they're very important. They're kind of, the location is key, in proximity to other key sites, and the rehabilitation of those sites, we think, are really key for an overall downtown revitalization strategy. So this map shows the ones we're focusing on, kind of where they all lie in proximity to one another. Some are buildings, some are vacant parcels, and we'll get into each of them briefly next here. The first one we're calling the Summit Avenue Row. We think there's a lot of opportunities on that stretch, anchored by, of course, the Herald Mail building. And then at the other end, you've got the County Court building, you've got the Discovery Station building, and then some pretty key buildings in between. So we wanted to treat that as a collective in a way, because we think, the revitalization or the reuse of all of those could really make a significant impact on the downtown. So starting with the Dagmar, I'm sure this comes up all the time. It's one of those sites that we talk about. We do think that upper floor market rate apartments would be ideal for this site, together with ground floor retail and dining perhaps. We are actually, for some of these sites, we are performing an economic feasibility. So we're actually gonna do a pro forma to pencil out, the improvements to see if they're, we want to make sure it's not a pipe dream, some of these things we're recommending. So that one does appear to be an economically viable use for the building for, market rate apartments, 1 and 2 bedroom units, and that would be a fantastic use. So the idea is hoping that if we can demonstrate to a prospective developer, this could work, you should invest in this building, whether they're the owner or whether there's someone who's considering selling it maybe, they don't know what to do, but either way, we think having that as a tool to demonstrate that this could really work is important. So I'll point out where we're gonna do that for each of these properties. The Shockey building up the street a little bit, great building. Again, we think ground floor retail with upper floor housing. This, being in close proximity to the university, USMH, we're wondering, hey, could this possibly be some additional student housing as well? Maybe it's fitted out so a portion of the building is students and the rest is, market rate for anybody. 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units to provide, a variety of housing types. There's potential for, outdoor space if we have some dining in the ground floor. So it's a really interesting property, we think, kind of nestled between, again, the Dagmar and the courthouse. We will also conduct an economic feasibility for that one. We think because it's a great size, it's kind of the perfect size for rehabbing, that's definitely a viable opportunity for a developer to get a decent return on investment for that. The Herald Mail building itself, that's just a really interesting, large opportunity. It's been looked at before. I've seen it advertised online through the office search engine, showing some different use ideas from retail, restaurant to residential, including condos, apartments, potential conference center, hotels. So, the sky's the limit in a way for that one. So it remains to be seen what occurs, but we wanted to make sure that that's included in this plan to just identify this as being a key property that should remain at the forefront of our attention. The Discovery Station building, recently vacated, great opportunity again for, we think, some sort of cultural arts, continue using that as that type of use is really a great use for that building. I think it lends itself well to that and its location as well. So again, that's a recent addition to the inventory that we want to just make sure is noted and remains in the plan. And then across the street, the Circuit Court building, that's to be determined as well. Like that's, we'll see what happens. If that moves, that's a great opportunity for a new use. So again, I'm just highlighting that as a key opportunity. So that's what we're calling Summit Avenue Row. Let's switch to another site right around the corner in North Potomac. This, partial parking, partial, city-owned building. This is an interesting site because it's underutilized right now, strategically located, but we wanted to just highlight that as having future potential as well, both for possibly new development infill or rehab of the existing buildings. We think use is ideal for that site would be continued office, perhaps maybe hotel. We talked about the opportunity for a new hotel in a year or so. That could be a great site. So just wanted to identify that as a key site over the next few years that could be an important part of filling in some of the vacancy. Similarly, 50 East Washington Street. That continues to be a parking lot. I think that was featured in the prior plan as a really key site for potentially office. I think that could still be a good use for that. We think also possibly a hotel could go there as well. Great location for that type of use. And the way that the property is, it's, kind of wide like that, potentially maybe an additional residential use. Obviously, it would be a new construction since it's a vacant lot right now, but that could be an opportunity for, adding an interesting element to the residential mix by it being new as opposed to rehabbing a beautiful old building. We just wanted to show some examples. When we talk about future office building, Isaac mentioned the Class A, larger footprint that could be available if a business comes to Hagerstown and says, we want to move our headquarters to the area. Is there anything downtown? Is there any opportunity for that? And so I think this is the kind of thing we're thinking, like a 3 to 4 story building, urban scale, ground floor retail, dining. This type of idea that could fit well in downtown Hagerstown. So this is another property that we will do a feasibility for. So we'll model, a office building prototype that the city could potentially, share or advertise to any potentially prospective tenants or developers, just to give them, again, an idea that, this could work in downtown Hagerstown. We've run some numbers. If you're interested, we've done some homework for you, so I think that could be a valuable tool. Similarly, the hotel. A hotel ground floor dining. A lot of most hotels have a restaurant or a bar or something like that in an urban setting. We think that would be a good kind of prototype for Hagerstown as well. These are just 2 examples of name brand flag, I guess what's the word for it? Marriott and Hilton with more of a boutique type of branch of their hotel chain, I guess, if you will. Not the typical Marriott or Hilton, but and again, you're seeing the boutique style in a lot of downtowns where it's a smaller hotel. I think you've got the full variety of hotels that someone passing through Hagerstown can easily get off the highway and stay. But I think the idea here is more of a destination. If someone wants to come for the weekend and see the sights and do some recreation and maybe go to a ball game and really be in town in a unique overnight experience, that this would be the type of thing. And we do think, based on both the room demand and the physical environment, could really lend itself well to something like this. And we will do a feasibility for this as well. So we'll do a hotel prototype to, again, just say, hey, this size hotel, in Hagerstown could probably work if somebody wanted to come in and develop that. Moving on to South Potomac, large opportunity site there at the corner of West Antietam and South Potomac, right around the corner from the baseball stadium, right behind Herald Mail Building. This has been discussed as residential with ground floor retail. We think that's a great use for that site. We will, again, we will program an apartment building concept that could be, and see how that shakes out in terms of the numbers. But we think that, that could really work for a developer with the right financing and the right unit count, and the right rents. So that could be a great site to contribute to the rental market that we were talking about earlier. The Holly Building, yet again, another great example of a building that lends itself really well to rehabbing into residential use. So we endorse that idea. We think it's a great location. Perhaps maybe that could be someday shared with some student housing as well. But overall, we think upper floor residential, market rate apartments, ground floor dining, retail, and then probably 1 and 2 bedroom units are really the sweet spot for apartments in the area. The YMCA building, again, beautiful building, great facade, historic in nature, has had some additions, but again, it lends itself really well to residential, we think. So this would be potentially market rate apartments as well, 1 and 2 bedrooms again. And we will as well do a feasibility for this to just, again, demonstrate, this building with a certain number of units of this size and quantity could return this type of investment to a developer who's interested. So finally, in terms of catalytic sites, the former hospital site, as you know, that's been studied and evaluated for a while now. We looked at it 10 years ago, and I think we have a similar thought for that, whereas the central portion as a park, passive open space with a historic theme makes a lot of sense. Surrounding it with housing of a variety of types, whether it's townhomes, apartments, and then using the existing garage, which is a great advantage. That's one less thing a developer would have to construct. So yeah, this is a really key site. It's important, we think, to stay at the top of the list here in terms of priority sites for the downtown area. So we wanted to make sure that that's included in the plan. Okay, so that was kind of the site-specific stuff. We wanted to go through several opportunities that we see along the streets and sidewalks and that kind of thing, because we think there's a lot of really exciting ways to continue the momentum downtown through some of these physical improvements. And we've got 4 categories of these improvements. We're calling one humanizing downtown. You've got a great downtown as it is, but we think there are ways to make it even a little more appealing and walkable and greener, at particularly some of the intersections. So we'll get into some of those details. But create a cultural loop is another strategy here. The cultural trail has been like a huge success, and we're suggesting maybe building upon that, creating some sort of loop around the downtown that intersects with that trail to get people to, comfortably and interestingly get to other parts of the downtown. And we'll get into some of those details. The alleyways, you've got a great network of alleys in downtown Hagerstown. So we think it'd be really interesting to reimagine some of those as places, particularly for pedestrians and cyclists, if they want to kind of get off some of the main streets, but then allow them to remain usable for deliveries and that kind of thing. So we'll show you some examples of that. And then finally, in terms of this category, be uniquely Hagerstown. It's a great city. There's a lot of great history. It's got an important identity. So we think some of these physical improvements could, create more placemaking, signage, that kind of thing, wayfinding, so people really know where they are and they know what Hagerstown is all about, really. Again, we'll show you some examples. So back to the humanizing aspect. So as I said, downtown's got some great streetscapes, trees, great sidewalks, very walkable. And then you've got some that, they need some more assistance. They're lacking trees. Some of the sidewalks are really narrow. They're in varying conditions, which is not atypical of most cities. So this map just kind of highlights some of the areas that we think would be best to target for those types of improvements. Summit, Potomac, and a key to this is that they're city-owned streets. As much as we may want to add some elements to Washington and Franklin, it's a Maryland-owned, it's a state-owned street. I think focusing on the city-owned streets is a wiser choice because we've got more control over what those improvements could be. These just show some examples of what we're talking about with the more humanizing. Again, just, making streets, not converting them to a pedestrian use, but sharing it more where, there's the ability to mingle more and have some more events that can take place right on the street. There's sidewalks, pavement treatments that can kind of identify some of those spaces. And of course, features that ensure that the safety between pedestrians and automobiles is maintained as well. So, you can just see here other cities have done some really interesting ideas for that type of thing. The cultural loop. So this map shows the existing cultural trail in orange and some of your key downtown features and how they sort of flank that trail. We're suggesting that a loop kind of intersects that again and surrounds the core of the downtown. And we're suggesting a first phase of that to be along Summit, going back to that discussion we had earlier on all those sites along Summit Avenue. So this would kind of go hand in hand with the private property improvements. So you've got public right-of-way improvements in addition to investing in some of those buildings, which we think could be a really great combination. This shows you some examples of what we're talking about for that cultural loop first phase. So this is the existing street on Summit that continues on to Jonathan. You've got one lane of through traffic with on-street parking. You got the sidewalk, you've got the bike lane. And we're thinking a way to incorporate that cultural loop is one of three different ways. And we're not suggesting one over the other, just these are some ways to potentially tackle that. The first two would actually remove parking and really widen that sidewalk to create the cultural trail and add it to the streetscape there. So you'd still have the one lane of traffic, you would have the trail alongside of that. Option one has it on the west side. Option two shows it on the east side. And again, this could, go hand in hand with some of those private sector improvements, the building improvements themselves. The one on the right would preserve the parking and just, extend the sidewalk a little bit with some elements of the cultural trail to make it clear that this is part of that trail. But we think there's some really interesting options here to extend the cultural loop through this part of Summit Avenue as a first phase. This map shows the extent of the whole loop concept. So again, that phase one over on Summit, the rest of it would circle around the immediate downtown, again, intersecting with the existing cultural trail and really allowing folks to, access a lot of parts of the downtown and continue the spirit of the cultural trail with the treatments that it has and, hopefully extend its popularity throughout other parts of downtown. The next item is the alleyways. And again, you've got great alleys. I think these photos really capture your existing system so well. This map shows the location of some of those key alleys. And again, we're aware that, some of them are used for deliveries and access. And I think the idea is to allow those to remain functional that way, but just to treat them a way that lets them stand out as special and places to congregate. This shows kind of a secondary set of alleys that, could also be improved to create a real extensive network of downtown alleys. And this next slide shows examples of how that could look here. These are from other cities, but you can see some of the treatments that are made to really liven up those spaces and make them kind of special gathering spots from lighting, murals, paint treatments on the surfaces, signage, really interesting ways to make those alleys, again, special places to congregate, and it's just a unique part of downtown. Be uniquely Hagerstown. So we've got a few key suggestions for that. We want to make it easy to follow. So once you're downtown, you've got a signage system, but kind of, enhancing that. So if people want to know where things are on foot, they can do that easily, and incorporating interesting elements into that signage with art, sculpture, that kind of thing. Make downtown welcoming. That's really focusing on the gateway areas and probably more for the automobiles coming into town. So you've arrived in downtown Hagerstown, located at all the key entrances. The map on the next slide will show some of those locations. The next point is making downtown contextual. And what we mean by that is, telling the city's history in its signage. So when people are in some of the park areas or making their way around downtown, they can really get a sense of Hagerstown's really interesting and colorful history as part of that journey. And then this last one's kind of fun, but make downtown famous. So, we were reminded that there's a lot of famous people from Hagerstown, and we think it'd be really interesting and fun to celebrate those famous folks who were born and raised here, and we'll show you some examples. So this map again shows where some of those improvements might occur. The orange symbols are the gateway treatments, and again, those are more probably auto-focused, so if you're driving into town, all those key entry points into downtown Hagerstown are identified as you're here. I'm sure you're here because it's quite obviously a great downtown as you enter, but these signs would solidify that. The make downtown easy to follow, that's more, for foot traffic, once you are downtown, getting your bearings and your way around the cultural loop. Make downtown famous, we're kind of focusing on the Maryland Theater area, thinking that'd be a really fun place to consider a walk of fame, something similar to like, the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And a lot of cities have those. I'll show you an example in a second. And then finally, make downtown contextual and the areas that, people would congregate, for example, Public Square or Thomas Kennedy Park or, the hospital site, if that becomes a park, adding some of those contextual placemaking, history, signage to those areas. This slide shows, again, examples of those 4 categories of being uniquely Hagerstown that we're talking about. The gateways on the left, you can see some other cities' interpretation of that. The easy to follow, again, those are more pedestrian scale, so people can find their way around. The downtown famous is the stars and the identifying and celebrating the celebrities of Hagerstown. And then the context there on the right, the signage of more of its general history and some of the important things that have occurred in Hagerstown over the years. So, all right, so that's the public realm opportunities, and we'll round things out with what we're calling programmatic opportunities. So not physical, but programs really. Starting with the housing, we talked about the housing market being, pretty, we think, robust for rental housing. But the notion that, strengthening the existing housing stock is really important as well to make sure that the market continues to rise, that would continue to make it appealing to investors to come in and build more, residential facilities for folks. So just increasing the strength of the market. So we've got, again, a few sub-strategies for this. The city does a really good job with its programs to assist both existing homeowners maintain and repair their properties, as well as prospective homeowners to purchase. So we laud those opportunities and we say, it's great, keep that going for sure. The city also has a program to acquire properties and rehab them and resell them. Great programs, very successful, and we would like to see the city, encourage them to keep doing that and seek additional resources to make that happen. The box on the lower right, I think a way to leverage those funding opportunities is through your Choice Neighborhoods program and the new Enough grant. This map here shows the boundaries of those, and it really creates a great opportunity, I think, for downtown in terms of housing. You've got, federal support from the Neighborhood Choice program, and you've got state support from the Enough grant program. The boundaries all kind of intersect, creating, I think, in a way, a perfect storm for leveraging funding to support, housing and housing maintenance and housing purchasing. So we think to the degree that those resources can be combined, those who run these programs agree that these are they're really ripe to be coordinated with and approved upon as together, leveraged. And then the one on the upper right there is concentrating code enforcement, just ensuring that property maintenance issues are addressed to make sure that the neighborhoods continue to improve and, gain value and contribute to an improving downtown area housing market. Next programmatic area of opportunity we think is improving the safety perception. So we think, a key to improving the perception of downtown is really getting folks, and I think this was reflected in some of our survey and public feedback, folks that don't live in downtown or come here a lot to have a great experience here and want to come back repeatedly and tell their friends and relatives, like, Hagerstown's great downtown. I had a great experience. It's safe. There's lots to do. I think that's really the ultimate goal here. And some of the ideas to do that, we think, are, continuing your great downtown events. You've got so many. This photo here shows examples. I was just struck by the attendance, and these take place throughout the year. You've got great city staff organizing these events. So we think keep those going. That's great. What would be great to continue is the upper right box there. We're promoting these events and following up with the success of the event, saying, hey, this event, we had 20,000 people show up, and just really promoting the visitation and the success and reminding people that a lot of people attend these, a lot of people come downtown, a lot of people have a really good time. The lower left, is the notion of a downtown business improvement district. You've probably seen those in other cities where that's, it's a nonprofit group that assesses properties on an annual basis to contribute to a fund that, supports downtown activities, cleaning, ambassadorship, folks walking around and helping make people feel safer. So that's something to consider. The city does a great job, but any place we've worked with a bid, and we've actually helped some communities start a bid, it's not that the city's not doing a great job, but it's always just enhancing and supplementing and supporting with additional resources, which is always welcome. So that could be something to consider. And then the bottom right is, working with the police and coordinating with them. And, they do a lot of great work promoting the safety of downtown as well. And they acknowledged, yeah, maybe we could make it clear to folks what we're doing and promoting our successes of safety. And, they said that, the 2 years of Meredith Park being open, they're like, there wasn't a single event, a single incident in 2 years. So they want to start, advertising the successes that they're seeing as well. So, and to the degree that they can improve their presence downtown, they would like to do that as well. Evening hours, weekend hours, both on foot and on bike. So that could be a great way to contribute to the safety and the perception. Finally, we see the university as a really important anchor in the downtown. It's hoping to expand its footprint over time. It's bouncing back after COVID. A lot of universities saw some enrollment dips, but they're pretty bullish on the future. They've got a 10-year plan. They want to optimize their real estate and their footprint, but they want to increase their enrollment. So, we think there are ways that the city can continue to be a good partner in terms of some of the properties they may own, working with the university on potential future housing, that kind of thing, but just continue its good relationship with the university. Consider, a parking arrangement perhaps, where the university might, provide parking assistance to its students in some of some of the city-owned facilities perhaps, as an idea there. And then the one on the lower right is, this notion of synchronizing the businesses with the students, where, certain nights classes run later, or the university will have events where the students would really like to grab a bite to eat afterwards. And the nights that they're down there, sometimes they're like, oh man, the businesses have closed. So this notion of a mismatch, and if there could be a coordination where everyone's on the same page, it would be a total win-win. The businesses would get, people coming through the door on nights when there tends to be more folks down there, and they would know, in advance when the busier nights are and can prepare to be open for that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting concept. And this, this just shows you the footprint, as you know, but with the University Plaza is the center there. So, all right, and that is it. That was a lot. But of course, we wanted to open up the floor and hear your comments and your questions. But yeah, thank you for your attention.
I like the,
Go ahead.
I like the idea with the alleys. Cause a lot of times if I'm walking downtown, I actually was thinking of the alley between the yarn shop.
Yes.
And I don't know what building
That
that is.
specific alleys come up, exactly.
So I like even the examples you gave with what different cities did,
Yeah.
because I always envision like the string lights in the
Yes.
alley, and even like the little market header for
That's
it
right,
to.
yeah.
And I was also thinking it could even be like part of the loop, because you can go through it and come out the other way and kind of go in the back way to the University Plaza.
Right.
And then kind of just keep going and attach it to like the culture trail. I mean,
Right.
that's a possibility. But I did always think about that alley. And even maybe along with the art, and maybe even some nights having vendors along
Yeah.
there. It's just an idea, but I did really like the idea of the alleys, because I feel like Hagerstown has a lot of alleys.
Yeah, and it's
So-
a unique thing that a lot of
Yeah,
places
so the
don't.
alleys connect
That's right. It's a
all
whole
through the
network.
town, so I like that idea. Thanks for
Right, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad those examples kind of highlight some of the possibilities, because, yeah, you visit other cities, and we were talking about, there's one in Cleveland, that you just kind of walk down the street, and all of a sudden the string lights catch your attention,
Yeah.
and like, whoa, there's all kinds of tables and chairs and activities and impromptu street activity, and so it's really, and it's a welcoming environment where people feel safe too, so.
Also had a question. As far as what was talked about as far as before for the property where the hospital was? Like,
Oh,
what did y'all initially talk about, like, the last time? You know what I mean?
The last 10-year plan had a conference center and hotel, as well as a historical Civil War heritage park associated with it. So it more contemplated a hotel and conference center closer to Washington Street there, and then further back would be like a more of a park amenity.
Yeah, so this makes it more of a residential versus a hospitality use, you know, and focusing suggestions for hospitality closer to the city center. That's kind of the difference between the two, yeah.
Thank you.
I really like how, one, thank you so much for your efforts, and the community engagement is really big for me, so I'm really happy to see that people completed the surveys and attended the community meetings. But, you know, throughout the years, the city has worked on a lot of these initiatives, from the Catalyst site opportunities, working with the owners there, to the artwork throughout the streets. But it's, for this plan, I really like how it's grouped together, so we can focus, you know, in chunks, I guess. Especially when it comes to like quick wins. For me, I'm always about quick wins. The Be Uniquely with the signages, I think that'll be a quick win. We
Yeah.
already started, you know, working on that, and invest in alleys. I mean, that has come up so many times with the lighting and stuff like that. And a quick win is promoting the attendance. So I think we're definitely consistent with what we're seeing in the surveys and what this plan shows. But to your point, you know, we could definitely make improvements and enhance in these 10 years, but we can definitely do some of these today.
Right.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
was thinking.
and, you know, I think the benefit of a plan like this is, and, you know, some of these aren't new ideas, but it's putting it all in one place. That's like a resource, like you said, you can kind of go to it and find it, and some are quicker, some are more long-term. And the report will kind of reflect some of those implementation ideas that you're suggesting, so we think that'll help.
And they all tie together too. When we're talking about, you know, again, Catalyst site
Yeah.
opportunities, you know, improving the buildings that are vacant, to the artwork, to the lighting turns into better perception of the safety, making it more lively for people to come downtown, just, you know, not just to visit, but to live, to have those better housing opportunities. So all of this ties in together in one way or another. So this plan is definitely mapped out to make some things happen.
Yeah, and, you know, just made me think of the notion of the retail aspect. You know, the more we can get people visiting, staying, and living, then all of a sudden that opens up the market more for dining and shops. So until you get that critical mass, you're really depending on the visitors, which, you know, they come and go. So that'll really, I think, turn the page with the commercial opportunities once we get more of a critical mass of people living and staying right in downtown, so.
I also want to thank you for your efforts, as well as the economic development team. We saw the percentages of the people, you know, of people that filled out the survey. Do you know how many people did the survey approximately? I mean, you might not have the number, but
Yeah,
That's over 450.
450.
Around.
450?
Yeah.
That's a good number.
Yeah,
And I'm also a huge fan of that, investing in alleyways. You know, Scott and I've talked too about the trail that goes to Meredith Park and having that lit up. And I think, you know, in the same way, they're making it colorful,
right, yeah.
well-lit. You know, I was talking to Chief Kuiper's back here too, but I was talking to him as well, you know, for perception of putting cameras in those alleyways as well. And he was talking about an actual monitor that would mount on a building somewhere where people actually can see themselves as they're walking through on the camera system. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a great, it really is almost an extension of the cultural trail in a way, because they would all connect, so.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, just watching you guys present, I can tell that we're falling right in line with where the development of the town is going. A lot of the things that you touched on were things that I had written down in vision boards, for example, like the Herald Media Building, the idea of, the town being an experience, right? You want to make sure that we have accessibility, whether it's walking lanes, bike lanes, mom pushing stroller lanes. There's food halls, there's entertainment, there's jazz clubs, there's comedy clubs, there's a lot of things to do, whether it's day and night. There's the unique memory. So a lot of the towns that I visit, my unique memory with my family would be to take a photo of whether it's like the structural element that someone designed or it's the name of the town. So we'll have like a picture, downtown Ithaca, downtown, Ocean City, like things.
Or greetings from,
It would be
that kind of
nice to
thing.
see like a huge,
Yeah.
sculpture that says downtown Hagerstown. That's a memory that someone
Yeah.
can take and share on. Parking is a big deal. How easy is it to park here? How expensive is it? How inexpensive is it? The events, for individuals to have the ability to either see it when they're walking around, like constantly of things that are going on, or they're seeing it online prior to them coming here. And all of this is really important because it's gonna change the perception of downtown Hagerstown.
That's right,
So
yeah.
once we have that perfect experience, or not close to perfect experience, that people can share that message on and on, it will eventually change the perception of what it is to come to downtown Hagerstown.
Yeah.
So I think you guys did a fantastic
Oh,
job.
thank you, appreciate it.
So, as you note, I was one of the individuals here during the prior iteration of this. And two things that I recall from that process. The first is, it was about $128 million worth of investment-oriented improvements that could be made within your urban core, in the foreseeable future. And it had things that it envisioned that did not come to pass, things that have come to pass that were not envisioned. But irregardless, about 75% of that total, it was envisioned would not come from local government, but would come from private investment or state and federal partners, right? So that's one thing that I remember from that process. The second thing I remember from that process is there was some critical analysis from our citizens that we focused too heavily on the downtown of downtown. Meaning like the 4 to 6 block area in the exact place where that investment has occurred. And I think that I would be remiss in not recalling that criticism to look at this presentation. And, while I see in the presentation a number of the slides sort of outline what we generally understand the parameters of downtown to be, I can't help but notice two things. One, when we look at all of those sort of major capital items, they're within that 4 to 6 block area, and they're of a scope that the city absolutely cannot deliver on. And I say that because of this. Unless we have state and federal partners that sort of change their position on how they would like to engage in assisting on those major project items, those buildings that are just too big for us to tackle, or unless some private investor wants to bring in some windfall of money to do so, those things are going to evolve of their own accord. in an area that we're already focused on, where people with much greater political ties and much deeper pockets can make those things move with or without us. That's a political reality of someone who's been here for some time to be able to see, recognize, and say. So I have to say to myself, am I going to make these things in this 4 to 6 block happen in this plan that I'm looking at for the next 10 years? And then I have to say to myself, what am I missing? What am I missing that the public wants? And they want safety, they want housing, and they want inclusivity. And I just have to think back to that previous plan and have to look at this and say, you know what? People are concerned about the safety and improvements, let's say, coming into town at Domino's on Prospect, leaving the area on East North, getting through the area on South Locust. These are sort of what I would envision those tertiary sort of blocks of downtown to be, that are not well lit. They are not well kept up in terms of housing, that provide that opportunity to see the city be able to invest in those programs that you allude to, that are things we can afford to do, that actually improve the housing, that bring those citizens we want into housing that then exists, to spur some of that. And all I would say is, from this presentation and this summary, is that we not forget or not focus on those 10 blocks around those 6 blocks in the core that are neglected, that are deficient in those things we want to see and incorporate them into. And that's, I think, what I would like to see added to this is that you're right, we have a great alley system, and the people that live in those neighborhoods know exactly how to use them, but they can be used better. We have a broad stock of that missing middle housing that simply isn't being invested in. Because it's as if we don't want to ask, who owns it? What's its condition? How can we contribute to making it better? There are tons of half doubles. I guess I just look at that and say, there's where I feel like we're sort of, we've sort of fixed the middle of the donut, and people with deeper pockets and those ties have done so to our benefit. Our outer area, we're seeing good investment, good development, good stable housing. It's sort of the donut itself now that I'm looking at and going, those are the streets that need lighting. Those are the houses that need improving. Those are the connectivity we need to make between people that want to come downtown, that live just outside downtown, and how you sort of fix that missing middle that has that housing that we're talking about, versus hoping that somebody's going to come in and put 150 units at some of these large buildings, where I just say, yeah, we could definitely jump on board and we could kick 10 million toward a project like that. But man, what would $10 million do for the hundreds and the several thousand properties of houses that exist in those sort of, tertiary blocks of our city, that we want people to come and live in, that we drive by on a daily basis and go, man, I'd hate to live next to that place, or I wish somebody would fix up that 3-unit, et cetera, and figure out, why that is. That's my 2 cents.
Okay. Anybody else? All right.
Great. Just as a reminder that we are still receiving feedback through right before Christmas. So if anybody is watching at home, please feel free to go to mydowntownhagerstown.com. There's a contact form that you can fill out, and it'll come to us, and we'll be happy to include those thoughts and comments, as well as you can email us at dped@hagerstownmd.org.
Appreciate it,
Thank you.
fellas.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.